A very good morning to you. How are you doing? I hope that you're well, you're blessed, you're happy. I'm so happy to see you here after a whole week, a whole health week. The last time we were here was on Wednesday, where we had an amazing conversation, and I thank the Lord that you're here once again. It's the 30th of April. Finally, we're done with our favorite month, because we agree that April is our favorite month for very many reasons. But then, all the other months are blessed in Jesus' name, amen? Amen. But it's finally 30th of April, and that tells you that time is really running. As we say every other day, every other morning, is that just make sure you're working towards your New Year's resolution. Ishachakwa New Year's. But then we don't want to get to like June, July, and then you'll be saying that too late, let's try again tomorrow, or let's try again, next year. We say that each and every day, just do at least one thing that will allow you to be working on your resolutions, hata kama ni kidogo kidogo. But thank you so much for being here. This is MBCI TV, ambapo tunabadilisha maisha by the grace of God. And of course, the show on air is Afya Clinic, where we talk about everything health. And as I say everything health, it's literally everything health. We said we are as diverse as possible. We talk about everything that affects our health. And health is mental, it's physical, it's emotional, it's everything. So as I over-explain myself, that tells you that today we're not talking about anything just normal. But if you've been on Facebook, on MBCI TV Facebook page, on my social media pages, I know that you've been able to see what we are talking about today. We'll be introducing our topic and our guest a bit later. But for now, I'd love to welcome you. We say that you are our guest of honor. One, we're truly thankful that God has allowed us to be here. We say that every morning ukiamka, it means that God has a reason why you are up today. It's not just because it's another Wednesday. He knows why you are up today, and there's a reason. So if you're there, you're discouraged, just know that God has looked at you specifically and he said, I love you too much. Wake up. I'm going to give you another chance. Okay? So this is where we get to learn about all that, and you get to just tell the other person or tell us what you're thanking God for. So that's the first step. I'd love for you to tell me, what are you thanking God for the whole 1 week from last week Wednesday? I know that God has been there for you. As much as there are things that you're trusting God for, I'd love to know. Unashukuru Mungu kwa sababu ya nini? And for that, our numbers are very open. That is 0721-105-105, 23814, our SMS code, which is absolutely free of charge. We're live on Facebook on MBCI TV Facebook page. We're live on YouTube on MBCI TV official YouTube page. Once again, my name is Rachel Kahugu. Happy and blessed to be here, and happy and blessed that you are here as well. This is Afya Clinic. We're talking about everything health, and I'd love to introduce the man that we are having today to take us through this discussion. We are talking about addiction. And on my social media pages, Rachel Kahugu on all social media, and by the way, we say that if you go there, send in your comment, we'll also be very ready to receive, and we'll receive it and we will read it. Okay? Now, I did ask a question. Would you be addicted to something and you probably don't know? Maybe we are, and this is where we unpack that. Labda uko hapo and you're addicted to something. You know, when you talk about addiction, sometimes would love to think ni pombe, cigara. You know how we talk about all that. But maybe you're an addict or something and you do not know. So we'll be talking about that and how addiction affects our health, our mental health, how it affects us as a whole. So if you have any question that you'd love to ask, our numbers are very open, and I'll just repeat before we get our guest intro. That is 0721-105-105 on WhatsApp, 23814, our SMS code, which is absolutely free. We're live on Facebook and YouTube, and you'll be able to get your feedback. Now, we're having Reverend Alex from KAG. Why am I doing the whole introduction? Let's get the guest profile. We say that psychology says, when you get to understand who we are having on set, then it's easier for you to even engage with him. So to put a guest profile so that you know who we are having today on set. This morning on Afya Clinic, we are honored to host a remarkable man of faith and purpose, Reverend Alex, a passionate minister, a mentor, and an addiction recovery advocate. He serves as a pastor within the KAG ministry and also leads Teen Challenge Kenya, a faith-based organization committed to helping individuals break free from addiction and rebuild their lives. With years of experience working alongside young men and women battling substance and behavioral addiction, Reverend Alex brings deep insight, compassion, and hope to this conversation. Today, he joins us to speak on the spiritual and practical journey of overcoming addiction, not just treating symptoms, but transforming lives. Welcome to Afya Clinic. Perfect. Yeah, so we are having Reverend Alex on set. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Rachel.
How are you?
I am good.
Happy?
Kabisa.
Blessed.
And excited to be here.
Asante sana.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. Sisi ndio tuko excited to especially talk about this topic, addiction,
Okay.
and to even have you on set. I think this is the second time we are having an actual, like a reverend or a pastor on set.
Oh.
So every time we're talking about having a
Is that a
reverend,
good thing?
it is. I don't know. So every time we're talking about having a reverend on set and it's a health show, at first it just doesn't make sense even to the crew.
Okay.
But then as we continue, I know we'll be able to unpack all these. So Karibu sana, please say hi to our people. That's your camera, then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm REV ALEX, Nganga Njogu. I love Jesus. He is my Lord and Savior. I just love life, and I'm grateful to be here today. I'm excited to have this conversation with all of you watching. Yeah. It's wonderful to see that people are concerned about addictions, because, you know, in our country right now, for me, that's the biggest pandemic we have. It's a national disaster for me. Yeah. And therefore, to be here to have this conversation really excites me, and I'm hoping you will ask questions. Yeah. You will seek the clarification on some of those things that you might be wondering concerning addiction. And when you text in, you can say you have a friend. You don't have to say it's you.
No, there. Because if you are addicted to something and you wouldn't want to say it's you, then that's what you can do. Ama tosi tuambie wewe ni nani. You know, you can just text it. By the way, for our SMS code, we might not be able to even track them. And then why would we even track them? So just text us. We will hide identity, but you will get help. All right? Now, Pasias, you've mentioned is that today we're talking about addiction. And you say that it's become a pandemic. And you'd love to know why would you say that it's become a pandemic? But before we even get there, it's that you're also from Teen Challenge.
Yes.
Tell us what Teen Challenge is.
Maybe I will up a bit.
Yeah.
And do an intro on me.
Correct.
So, like I said, I'm Alex Nganga Njogu. I serve with Kenya Assemblies of God since early 2000s. So that has made me a pastor for about now 19 years. I've been in ministry for about 19 years. Okay. I'm married. Should say that on TV for the sake of peace. Correct. I'm married to a beautiful lady, Caroline. Yeah. This year we celebrate 20 years. Oh, wow. God has blessed us with 3 kids, a great family, and we're enjoying God for His grace. Yeah. So in the process of ministry, God has taken me on a journey to get me there. Before I got saved, I was that kid in school who people call the cool kid, you know. I was the guy who lit up the party. But I still lit up the party even now, but a good party. Yeah, for Jesus. Yeah. I was the guy who lit up the party. I was the guy who led the trends. I was the guy who mobilized people. I was the guy who people followed. And in the course of all that, I got myself caught up in drinking, and alcohol became a real problem. Okay. You know, I looked back at my high school years and I realized between Form 4 and Form 1, if I count the number of weekends that I was sober, when I combined them for 4 years, they can't amount to 2 months.
They wouldn't amount to 2 months for a whole 4 years?
Yes.
Okay.
So I got myself in the process, you know, caught up in drinking. When I finished high school, drinking. And by the time I get saved, in fact, I got saved drunk in my house. Or one night, I came back into the house and switched on the TV. But like 1 year earlier,
Yeah.
God had done something strange to my TV. That my TV refused to, it only showed one TV channel for almost 1.5 years even. And it happened to be the only Christian TV station there was. That was the only channel my TV had a clear signal on. So
Okay, which was?
family back then, family TV.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a bit ancient.
Yeah. I think I can do it, you know.
It's there.
Yeah.
But that time it was the only Christian TV station.
Yeah.
So I switch on, I'm drunk, and I'm feeling bad about having drunk again that day. I switch on the TV, and it was like there was a preacher waiting for me to press the remote, on, and he was like, "You can give your life to Jesus."
Oh, really?
Yes.
Immediately.
On the guy is pointing, and he says that Jesus will give you purpose. You'll know who you really are, and that spoke to me.
Okay.
Because the way I was and the way God had made, the way God made me, I'm really gifted in many things. I can do a lot of things without much effort. And that always gave me a crisis of identity. If I went to the guys who played basketball, even though I was short, I could really play well. If I went football, I could play football. If I went to pool, anything I did that I was interested in, I was really good. So I've always wondered, up to that point, I always had this crisis. What's the thing with me? What's unique about me? What's the thing that I should focus on? So when this guy says that night that if I give my life to Jesus, and I was drunk and I got that, that he could give me purpose, I could know who I really am. Me, I said that prayer. But it was not even pause. It was a very straightforward kind of a talk. And he led the guy behind the screen to a prayer of salvation. I did, and I blacked out, and something was just different the following morning. And now it's been almost 22 years. That was 2003, about September there. I was drunk, so I don't remember the date exact. But since 2003, that day, I never tasted alcohol again.
Question. Because I would assume the issue with people is relapsing. You think you're fine and you're clean, and then after 2-3 months you do the same thing again, and then you're like, so you have to start from zero? What do you mean?
From now being in the ministry of helping people, so I have encountered several kinds of people, and maybe we can get to that later. But for me, it was a one-time deliverance. It happened like right there and then God put me on this fast-forward track of Christian discipleship, like really intense, to the point that by the time I was finishing my first year, I was already in ministry. I was already preaching. I was leading people to Christ. It was somehow crazy if you think about it. But if I look at the things that God made me go through since that night to the following September, it was a really intense crash course on discipleship. So in about 2008, I want to get to Teen Challenge. In about 2008, there came a missionary who was a missionary with KAG, Kenya Assemblies of God. And he had the burden of starting a Teen Challenge center. Now, Teen Challenge is a program that is all over the world. Originally started in America, but spread to many countries. By that time, it was in about 102 countries. So he had a burden to start one in Kenya. And from what he was told, that Teen Challenge centers, the people who serve there are normally people with a past in addiction. So he was looking for people he could start the center with, but he had an interesting CV that he was looking for. That you must have been a person with an addiction. You had struggled with alcohol and drugs, gangs, such things for a good time in your life, but you got saved and now you are serving the Lord. That was the CV. So when he said that, he was several names were floated to him. and my name happened to be among those names, and he called me.
Okay.
And I went, and when I heard what he was saying, it was exactly what I hoped to be involved in. Something that was helping young people like I was, caught up in addiction, but no way of living it, can't navigate it alone.
Yeah.
But now there's a structured program to help them walk away from that life, start afresh.
Yeah.
So when he spoke to me, that was an answer to prayer, and I definitely said, yes, I will join.
Okay.
So Teen Challenge of Kenya started in 2008. That's when we officially opened our center back then.
Nairobi?
In Nairobi.
Okay.
We were somewhere in Ridgeways. But now fast forward, is it 18 years? We just turned 18 this year. Fast forward 18 years, now we have a center here in Nakuru, in our own property. And this is in Nakuru, that's where actually our headquarters for Teen Challenge at the moment are.
Yeah, in Nakuru?
In Nakuru, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because that's our property, and that's where we have built our center there. We have another center for men in Kiambu, Mushroom Gardens. And we still have another center for women, just in Mushroom Gardens, not very far from the men's center, for women. And right now we have about a total of about 60 men and women in the program. And we continue in the hope that Teen Challenge can be part of the solution to the addiction problem in Kenya. So apart from just being at the center and ministering to those people who come to us, we have a lot of outreach programs that make us go out there, and we are able to do awareness, we are able to minister, we are able to help people who are struggling with addiction, we are able to help families of people struggling with addiction.
Okay, I hear you. And as we talk about addiction, I would assume that addiction is really wide. But before we get to it, because we'll be having also an in history segment just to learn about the history of addiction, kidogo. But before we get there, is that why the name Teen Challenge? Because you know, the first time I heard about Teen Challenge, just like, is this a teens program? But then it's Teens Challenge, but we're dealing with addiction. Why the name Teens Challenge?
So Teen Challenge began in America. A man of God called David Wilkerson. He's the one who started the first center. And how it started out of a need. He was preaching in Brooklyn, reaching out to gang members. Actually, he saw on the news some gang members who were going to be sent, they were on trial for murder. So he went to the court, and he wanted to be given a chance to minister to these young kids who were on trial. They were teenagers, but gang members. And that move for him going to that courthouse to seek the judge to allow him to minister to these teenagers caught a lot of public attention. And it began his ministry among gang members. And most of the gang members back then in Brooklyn would be teenagers, people 16, 17, 18. So when Teen Challenge started, it got the name from the first target group, who are these gang members who are teenagers. So the name kind of stuck. So some centers, to make a difference and to let people know that it's not about kids, they add the name adult. So in America, there's some centers, you see Teen Challenge and adult. Adult and Teen Challenge. But the ministry, in Kenya in particular, we only take in people who are over 18. We do minister to teenagers in high schools in terms of an outreach program, but being a residential program, we only take in people who are over 18. So right now in our center, we have somebody who is 63.
Now, I'd love to talk about that, because 63, and how do you even convince this person that You're an addict at 63, just come and stay at our center for a whole 1 year. You need grace there. But before you tell us about it, let's just get the in history segment so that you get to understand kidogo what addiction is, and then we'll be getting into the depth of it. We've talked about what Teen Challenge is. You've heard about the history of Reverend Alex, and now for that, I know you are in a position to ask the questions that you'd love to ask and even understand what you need to understand about addiction. So if you have someone that unajua yuko addicted in one way or the other, that is alcohol and different types of addictions that we'll be talking about as we continue, this is where you send them the link on Facebook, on YouTube, so that they'll be blessed as well. We say that God never gathers his people in vain. So you're not here just because. So kwa unajua kuna mtu mwenye yuko mahali and they're addicted. This is the time, all right? So for now, let's get the in history segment.
Addiction has been part of human history for thousands of years, from ancient cultures using substances like alcohol and opium to modern struggles with drugs, alcohol, pornography, gambling, and even digital addiction. In early times, addiction was seen as a moral weakness or spiritual failure, but over time, medical and psychological research has shown that addiction is a chronic brain disease that affects behavior, decision-making, and self-control. There are many types of addiction: substance addiction like alcohol, tobacco, heroin, cocaine, and prescription drugs, and behavioral addiction such as gambling, pornography, social media, and gaming. Left untreated, addiction can lead to broken families, job loss, mental health issues, crime, and even death. Beyond physical harm, it often destroys a person's identity, relationships, and hope. Today, we understand that effective recovery must be holistic, addressing the mind, the body, and the soul, which is why programs like Teen Challenge combine therapy, spiritual growth, and life skills to offer true transformation and healing.
All right, and we are back, and now you understand what addiction is and the different types of addiction. Now, Rev, is there, now that we've talked about different types of addictions, heroin, alcohol, cocaine, hizo zote, and you've dealt with so many people who are addicts, what would you say, because you also say that it's a pandemic, and that's a very serious word. We need to do better, and I pray that God will help us. But what would you say people are mostly addicted to right now?
Well, I guess that would depend with the age group. So the different age groups will have different kinds of addiction. And you know, first of all, when we come to the issue of addiction, there is the substance abuse part of it.
Yeah.
And again, there is also the addiction to certain habits. Okay?
Okay.
So for substances, you know, the usual ones are prevalent. Among the teenagers right now, young people, there is mugoka, jaba, that we have adopted into a household name. It's really causing havoc because jaba is really cheap. Then there is marijuana. So people are smoking shash. You know, it comes by many names. Again, many teenagers are using that. Then there is tobacco in its various forms. Chavez. The teenagers are using that too because again it's cheap. Marijuana is also cheap. And then nowadays the most prevalent one, as people get a bit older, becomes alcohol. And now the hard liquor becomes what is mainly being abused in the country and causing a lot of addiction. Sorry. So when you think about the substances, you find that those are the major substances that in Kenya you're finding a lot of people using. But again, heroin and cocaine are also used widely in Kenya, and the use is growing and spreading very fast. Kenya is becoming more of Kenya is becoming richer, as much as the young people and the narrative that Kenya is bad and all. But Kenya, economically, people are becoming more blessed, as we would say, as Christians. And with that comes with the challenge of some of these drugs like heroin and cocaine. So in the past in Kenya,
Yeah.
heroin was the predominantly used drug. In school, we were taught that that is the hard drug.
Yeah.
But now, in the recent past, a phenomenon has taken place, and cocaine in the form of crack is in use a lot at the moment.
Okay.
And it's becoming a big problem.
Yeah.
And also now there is the other synthetic drugs that are in the market, like fentanyl, and they kill very fast. They're also creeping into the market.
Yeah.
So with all of this, you know, the world becoming a global village. So whatever people see happening in the West,
Yeah.
and people are traveling. And Africa has a very high young population. And with that, even the drug traffickers know that we are a good market.
Yeah.
So, and we are getting more income. So those drugs are being poured into our country.
Okay.
So for substance abuse, the variety is quite wide,
Yeah.
and it targets from the very people who are economically like disadvantaged and to
Yeah.
those who are advantaged economically.
Yeah.
There is all sorts of drugs to match them, to match the pocket.
Okay.
But in the end, whether they are soft or hard, the damage is the same.
Yeah.
If you meet a cocaine addict, a heroin addict, and an alcoholic who is an addict now, and you listen to their life stories without either of them telling you what they have been using, the damage is the same.
Okay.
The broken relationships, the crime, the injuries,
Yeah.
the near-death experiences. The outcome in the end of whether you are using Jabba
Yeah.
and this guy is using cocaine, the outcome when you get hooked
Yeah.
is the same,
Okay.
because the keyword is distraction.
Yeah. And maybe we'll be getting to the effects and what that practically looks
Yes.
like. But maybe what then causes people to get into addiction? What's usually the very first step?
Okay, and now maybe that brings into the other kinds of addictions that are not part of substances, like gambling,
Yeah.
pornography, masturbation,
Yeah.
which is becoming a serious problem among young people.
Yeah.
So you see, those are not substances that are being used, but in the end, they seem to be affecting lives and destroying lives,
Yeah.
almost with the same level of impact as the substances.
Yeah.
In Teen Challenge, we use a different term for addiction,
Which is?
life controlling issues. So when we're talking about addictions, we put it in a way that somebody can understand.
Okay.
It's easier. So we call them life controlling issues. In fact, we say about Teen Challenge that Teen Challenge is a ministry that disciples people with life controlling issues.
Okay.
So from that definition of addiction, life controlling issues, it tells you that this is something that begins with experimentation,
Yeah.
first use. Every person who is addicted to whatever it is
Yeah.
had a first time. For whatever reason,
Yeah.
had a first time. And that first time changed everything, because that's where their journey into this terrible mess that they are in at that particular moment, it started. So to answer your question, it starts with that first use.
Okay. Now, for someone who's there, and they've probably already tried, it's like their first time, or wako tu kwa ile early stages. What would you tell to that person? They're not addicted. They're really not an addict, but they've like tried. It's like a week or 2 weeks or like a month of them getting into, drug and substance abuse or any other kind of life controlling issues.
Now, Rachel, it's Afya clinic, eh?
Yeah.
But you're a Christian station. Okay, can I answer that for this time like a Christian?
Yes, please. As Reverend Alex.
As REV ALEX.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, I forgot to give a shout out to my church.
Mtapatana later on Sunday.
KAG New Beginnings, that's where I pastor, by the way, on Mirema Drive. Now, there is a scripture in Ephesians, chapter 2, verses 1.
Yeah.
And that scripture starts in a very interesting way. Apostle Paul, writing to the Ephesian church, says, as for you, you were dead in your sins and transgressions. And that scripture for the longest time rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
How would he address people who, why would he compare the life of the Ephesians before they came to Christ as dead?
Okay.
So that's where my conversation began. Then in my process to understand that, I was teaching on that book. In the process of trying to understand that, I read a book, a commentary by a man called William Buckley. And his explanation of that scripture really spoke to me now on something else that I wasn't looking for, but I needed, on how somebody gets addicted.
Okay.
So, William Buckley argued that the reason why Paul wrote that people before they come into Christ, they are dead in sin, he said that sin has a way of killing. Sin has a way of killing.
Okay.
And now his description of that, to justify that statement, fits with what in addiction counseling and what psychologists explain as to how somebody moves from that first day of experimentation to the place where they find themselves totally addicted and overrun by substance abuse or a habit. So he said that sin, in the first way, kills innocence. That the very first time you do something, your innocence as to that thing dies. For example, for me, throughout my addiction life and party life, I never liked smoking. People would never smoke next to me. I was that bad. But when I was about 7 years of age, my brother, who was older, wanted to smoke, and he knew I would snitch him. So what he did, he gave me a cigarette too. He forced me to take a puff, so that we have done it together now. I couldn't report him. I never did report him. But my innocence, as far as smoking was concerned, was taken away on that day. So I never did become much of a smoker. I never did smoke again. I never went past that. But if smokers are told to stand up, I should stand. Because I have smoked. So you see, with this first use, your innocence, as far as something is concerned, is taken away. And you can never wish it away. That first time you take something, you can't untake it.
Evil.
Now, that first time you do something like that, it horrifies you. It disturbs you. That person that you're talking about that is at that stage, perhaps they are feeling guilty about that thing. They walked into the room and they thought everybody else knew that they had puffed that thing, that marijuana, or they had drunk that day. Even the walking style was different. The conviction on the inside was terrible. Okay? So they are that state of feeling the guilt, and that's a very good place. Because they can make another decision not to have a second time. Because you see, even that first time, regardless of the situations that surrounded it, you still made a choice to cooperate and take. So for us, when we teach about addiction and life controlling issues, we say that your choices play a very central role in this journey. There are other models out there that teach addiction is a disease. For Teen Challenge and from our experience, we have seen, yes, when finally somebody gets addicted, it can turn into a disease because now it affects their body, it affects their mind on a physical level. But at the very beginning, what led them onto that journey was a decision they made. I decided to be afraid of my brother and smoke. I could have refused. I I could have refused. And there's no way he was going to put it in my mouth. But I made that decision.
Yeah.
So this person who is at that first stage, you know, feeling the guilt,
Yeah.
feeling terrible about it, that's a good place to be at, because you can stop. You can make a decision and say that I don't need this in my life.
Yeah.
You can quote to yourself Proverbs that only a fool learns the hard way.
Yep.
You can choose to learn from the experience of other people. But William Buckley argues that because of the way sin, sin operates, and I think addiction now operates in that same way,
Yeah.
that most of the time people will go past that first trial.
Why?
Curiosity, peer pressure, confirmation. Some people just want to confirm.
Yeah.
Is it that bad or is it me? Or is it that good or is it me?
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, a choice again is made. Why? They choose. You're asking.
Okay.
Okay? So they move to the next stage now.
Okay.
For him, he argued that after taking away your innocence, sin kills ideals. If you continue doing that thing that at first you felt very bad about it,
Yeah.
that you felt so awful because you did it, if you continue in it, your ideals die.
Yeah.
And you know, what do I mean by your ideals? Your standard and sense of what is right and wrong. The more you do something, that becomes blurry. And in addiction, that's the same thing. You move from experimentation to a frequent user.
Yeah.
Now, and sometimes they call it a social user. You use it just for fun when you're in parties, to relax.
Yeah.
The guilt is no longer there.
Yeah.
Somehow, your past convictions about that thing, the way you thought that only a confused, lost, and saved person is the one who drinks,
Yeah.
who eats mugoka. Suddenly now, you have a rational reason why you're doing it.
Yeah.
You rationalize it. I feel good.
Yeah.
It helps me to relax. It helps me to process.
I've really had that a lot.
I think clearly.
Yeah.
I'm able to express myself.
Yeah.
I'm able to sleep.
Yeah.
I'm able to forget some things. So your ideals die. Your sense of what is right and wrong
Yeah.
begins to become blur. And if you continue in that, now for William Buckley, he was talking about sin. He says the next thing that dies, that sin kills, is your will. The will is that part of a man or a woman that helps them to make decisions.
Yeah.
That I will do this. In fact, that's what makes us people. Now, as you become a frequent user, okay, your body begins to get dependent on that substance. And now an addiction begins to form. The habit is now turning into an addiction.
Yeah.
It's turning into a life-controlling issue whereby your body begins to demand for more. You begin to crave.
Yeah.
For you to laugh, for you to be happy, for you even to cry,
Yeah.
you need the substance. So before you were doing it, out of you initiating.
Yeah.
But now in this third stage, and a very deadly stage, it's no longer a question of you feel like it. Is that you must.
Yeah.
In fact, you must in order for you to feel.
If you don't, then
You
you
are
can't
there.
function.
So for the alcoholics, they have their term, you know, on a lock, or to Chavez, they have their term.
Yeah.
Every group will have their term of why they need a fix
Yeah.
to return to some level of normalcy. Now, you see, at that point, they are dependent. They are dependent on a substance.
Yeah.
They are dependent on a habit
Yeah.
to feel what regular people feel. So it's no longer a question of using because you want.
Yeah.
You're using because you must. So I found that a great similarity with what William Buckley was talking about sin.
Yeah.
That once you start something, that first time takes away your innocence.
Yeah.
Then you continue doing it. It takes away your ideals. Your sense of right and wrong goes.
Yeah.
It becomes blur. Then you move to a final stage whereby you do that very thing that at first you were afraid of, that you were hated, that you
Yeah.
abhorred people that did it. You now do it because it's a must. So your will, as far as that thing is concerned,
Yeah. It's gone.
it's gone.
Yeah.
You are at the mercy of that habit.
Yeah.
And so all along there were chances for you to choose a different path, but we somehow tend to make wrong choices.
Yeah.
So even at this stage where your will is gone, you must make a choice to seek help.
Oh, wow. You know, that's really heavy, because you're saying that and I'm just thinking about the people I've met that are really addicted to some things and they just can't function without. And I'm also thinking about people that I've met that say, and maybe that's you, I don't know, that say, do you drink? And they'll say, no, I only drink occasionally for fun, during weekends or during holidays, you know, on days like that. But then I'm thinking, as you said, is that saito ndo unakunywa from your will. But with time, you'll start doing whatever you're doing because you have to. Because if you don't, then there's a side effect to that. And that may be you, maybe your uncle, maybe your sibling. And the other time we were having a discussion about this on our conference that I mentioned here, because I always will, is that he said most of the times, huyo mtu mwenye unaona yuko addicted, then they don't think there's a way out. But when you una watch ukiwa normal, you know there's a way out to that person. So we'd want to get there where, kama mimi niko normal, but I know I have a friend, I have a sister or a sibling who is addicted. How are you able to help that person? But before we get there, we did ask some questions and you answered about what addiction is, how you get addicted and why you get addicted. That is the Vox Pops. So I'd love for us to get that before, because I see time is really running and I don't know. If you have questions, tutakuwa tunarudi tutazisoma. But for now, I'd love for us to just get that segment where we'll get to just hear and understand what you're saying about the topic of addiction as well.
Kwa environment yenye nimelelewa, I think mimi nimekuwa na addicted na mambo yangu binafsi na marafiki. Unakuwa na marafiki wanakuwa wazuri, kuna wengine unajua wanakuwa wabaya. So ni mimi kuchagua addiction yangu itanipeleka pande gani. Itanipeleka pande ya marafiki wazuri ama marafiki wabaya. So mimi nikakuwa addicted kuwa na marafiki wale wazuri. Wale wenye niko na manufaa kwao, wako na manufaa kwangu.
Kwanza ni peer pressure. Unaona wase pia unataka kuweka hao. Ya pili tuseme uko curious, unataka kujaribu kitu unaona wakifanya. Na saa zingine pia inachangiwa na tuseme tu uambiwe tu jaribu. Unajaribu unapata umekuwa addicted.
Nimekuwa addicted kwa maana yale nilikuwa napitia kitambo. Cha kwanza nilinakumbuka nilikuwa na marafiki wabaya mabad company nilikuwa natembea nao. Cha pili sipendi kukaa nyumbani, napenda kuhang mtaani hivyo. Then minero yangu ikuanga poa.
Huko si rahisi na pia huku si rahisi. Huwezi lala kwa nyumba, lazima ujitume kwa hii kazi. Pia na ilifanya pia wakati nikakaa hivyo, hata mimi nikaanza na kunywanga kidogo. Na nakunywa wakati mwingine umeboeka hakuna kazi unakunywa. Unapata imejikupeleka huko tena juu hauna namna.
All right, here we're having reasons as to why we get into different kinds of addiction. And remember there's someone who's mentioned they got into addiction because life was tough and they had an option of, you know, maybe taking alcohol to relax. What did you say about that?
Yeah, that's a frequent reason that people mention.
Yeah.
We hear that all the time in our centers when we interview people. So how did you start? And people who cite a certain time in their life when they had to face an unusual amount of stress. There was an issue that happened in their life. And as a coping mechanism, they got themselves involved in the alcohol or the drugs. And sometimes I tend to, believe it's true.
Yeah.
But again, having thought about it, I came to the conclusion that if the alcohol and drugs were not an option in the first place, you were not already using them for at whatever level,
Yeah.
it would have been very hard for you to now walk into a bar and ask for a drink that you have never drunk.
Yeah.
So you see, that first time opens a door that you will never know when the enemy will use it to hook you up and get you into all sorts of trouble. I know people who for a long time just drank 1 or 2 beers and that's it. They were just social drinkers until something happened. They lost a loved one. They lost a job. Then suddenly their social use began to escalate and now they find themselves hooked. That's why for me, and in Teen Challenge, wherever we go, we advocate for total abstinence. We don't talk about moderation.
Yeah.
We don't tell young people that be moderated. Although we know there are people who will drink 1 or 2 beers all their life. They will never go to the 3rd bottle.
Which is still wrong, because please get saved.
There are so many who will do that. And even they will give you theology. And the theology will show that they might be in heaven. Okay? But
it's the might part.
And might is a strong indicator.
Yeah.
But hear me, they form a very small percent. And you can never tell whether you are that kind of guy who will never go past that.
Okay.
So opening that door, you don't know where it will lead. So for us, we preach total abstinence.
Yeah.
That let's set an example, because the damage that has been done in Africa because of simple social use of whatever it is that people are using in any community has led to now devastating proportions of problems. Look at Central. There are schools with no kids. The men go to the shopping centers in Central Kenya. The shopping centers look like ghost towns, and the men there look like zombies. In fact, the people who only work in Central Kenya, the big percent of the production is by the ladies. And it's not only there. You visit counties. We visit counties all the time, and that's what we see.
And why is that? Because I'd also just love to understand, because as you've mentioned, and it's true, it's in from statistics, is that you have so many men who are addicts of this stuff, cocaine and all that. Why the men in our society?
I guess we'll go TikTok.
There's that.
Okay, anyway, but you see on social media there's always those clips why men die early.
Okay, but we've done well, at least.
Why men die early? You've seen some of those clips where the boy child they like to experiment, they try things out, and in English they said curiosity killed the cat. In fact, one of the people who talked about why they you might try drugs is curiosity. So I guess men are curious, but again, the pressure on men is real. Okay, the weight and burden of society, ideally the way the setup is here in Africa and for most of the world, is that it's on the men. So again, as a coping mechanism, they find themselves caught up in addiction. And the adverts, look at the adverts. Who do they target?
Men.
You see.
Even
in the movies, the guy who doing the shots, rarely will it be a scene where it's the ladies competing to do the shots. There are few.
I understand you.
So even Hollywood and society and for me as a Christian, the strategy of the devil, if you hit the head, you finish the body. The society is lost. So even in the movies, you look, it will be the man, before he goes and to shoot and kill those people, he takes a shot, or after the deal, pours himself some expensive whiskey. Most of those scenes.
So it's a strategy.
I would say it's a strategy. It's a strategy of the enemy to attack the men.
Okay.
But that does not mean that the problem is not rampant among the women. Right now, the number of women who are caught up in life controlling issues, the rise, the rate at which the numbers are rising, oh my, for the women. I don't have specific statistics, but from our experience and our encounters, it's so high right now among the women. And if you give me a chance, I perhaps have a theory of my own, just a theory I've been floating.
Okay.
I'm thinking, and look at all the life controlling issues, including gambling.
We will talk about gambling because that's something right now. In fact, where did I see that they've actually banned? I am not very sure, so I might not want to talk about it. But on the next show, I'll mention it. Something about the ban of gambling and stuff like that. I will make sure I just get my statistics right and then we'll get to talk about that. But gambling is on another level.
Yes, and guess what? Their biggest target group right now for all those companies is the women. The target is the women. And even now with the industry of alcohol, the market that they had that was unreached and they are working extra hard to reach are the women. In Nairobi, I don't know here, in Nakuru, but I'm guessing it's the same. You will find right now the biggest business and the business that is mushrooming at a very high rate will be the wines and spirits. And some of them, if you look at them, they are state of the art in terms of the investment on the display. The way they have been built, some like supermarkets, in fancy locations, in very expensive locations. But you never see anybody inside.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a theory how they're keeping afloat. You don't see people inside. You don't see traffic.
There's no traffic.
To explain how they are maintaining that location. Why they invested so much on that look, on that display. But in my opinion, and in my own research that I am yet to publish, I'm thinking it's because they're targeting women and Christians. Women and Christians. And these companies that sell liquor, they are really helping out. Right now, there is a flavored drink of every other major drink that was there before. There is some strong alcohol that is sweeter than Fanta. But you would enjoy drinking them rather than drinking Sprite. So tasty. Smells so nice. The person drinks, is totally drunk. You talk to them, they smell so nice. Not the stench that you're used to. So who is interested in this? Which part of society? Look at society. Which segment of society is interested in smell, taste? It's the women. It's the women. And the young kids.
It's the women. And you know why that's so sad? It's because yesterday I was talking to someone and they said, you know, we've had so much of women empowerment and we need you guys to, and we refuse that in the name of Jesus, but they said we need you guys to step down kidogo. You can be up there and the men be, but I know that's a whole other discussion where we talk about women empowerment and men empowerment because it's there in the word and you know what's supposed to be done. But then as you're saying, it's really sad to see the society, women and kids included, going down because of addiction.
And you know why they're targeting the women? Because number one, they were a segment that was not really much paid attention to. Like you said before, the problem right now is with the men. You want to see the problem after the investment has been made. Okay? So, number two, there's a lot of women empowerment. So a lot of women are making a lot of money. So before they targeted men because perhaps they thought the women didn't have the money. But now the women have the money. So let's make drinks that will suit the women, that the women will love, that the women will enjoy. And since now they can afford it,
they'll buy.
They'll buy.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, in those big wines and spirits, the fancy ones that you're seeing all around, like I said before, you never see anybody there. but they remain in business month after month. You know why? Again, I'm in shock that many Christians serving in churches, they're drinking.
Yeah.
And who makes the big number of Christians? If you count Christians. So you know what is happening? Deliveries at home.
Okay.
So these fancy places, they are making big business delivering at home.
Why do you have Christians who are still drinking and they can't stop drinking?
Why? Again, a question of choice. We can't stop. Perhaps they are now addicted, but
Maybe
now they have
want to. Maybe they want to stop, but they just can't stop.
They're addicted now. That's the part of this why we're having the conversation.
Yeah.
Remember the wheel bit. Now the wheel is gone. What started as a social thing has now turned into an enslavement.
Yeah.
So right now they're there because they are enslaved. They put in the time, they invested in the drinking, and now they're reaping the consequences of that which is now your body is dependent on the substance. So a lot of Christians are doing that secretly in the house.
Yeah.
There's a lot of drinks in the house. There's a lot of drinking in home parties. And it's the Christians that are doing that, not knowing that they're trying to fit into the world. They're trying to look cool. They're trying to look sophisticated. You don't want to be the guy who's boring. You don't want to be the guy when you invite people into your house for a party. They don't like to show up because it's a boring party. They make fun.
Yeah.
So you want to fit in. But in the end, you're opening a door for a monster. You're creating a problem that may take yourself, may take your kids, and their kids.
Yeah.
Could be a seed that you have planted in your family that for generations, the impact will be felt.
Yeah. And as you're talking about impact, because I know we're taking a very short break, it's almost 9, but I'd just love to read this one feedback that is really heavy. Okay? And then as we come back, we'll be starting with these, by answering these, and then we'll get into more of the discussion, because now we'd love to know, what is this heavy effect that you're talking about? How does being addicted to different stuff, pornography, masturbation, alcohol, cocaine, at the internet, especially the young people. We were talking about addiction. I thought about myself and I was like, could I be addicted to the internet and my phone? And then he said they should try staying without like Wi-Fi or internet for like a week. And I see how that goes, because kwani how is supposed to, but we'll see if that's actual being an addict. But we'll talk about all that. We'll talk about what's the effect of all those kinds of addiction. If you're there, you're an addict, or you know someone who is an addict, you'd love for them to get help. This is where you get help, or they get help. The other time we're talking about why it's very, very sad that the devil will make it look like ni wewe tu unapitia hiyo shida na kuna mtu mwingine mwenye ana struggle kama wewe, and they'd want you to sit there, keep quiet, stay in that cocoon with your problem and never get help. But we're here to tell you, whatever it is that you're going through, if it's addiction, there are other people, so many people in Teen Challenge, and I know that Rev will be sharing the experiences with us, who are going through the same, so you can get help. It's for you to just reach out, and we'll be giving the numbers as we take the break. Time is running. Hi guys, I thank God for this program. Addiction. I was an addict of alcohol, tobacco products, zile za kuweka kwa mdomo, like tambu.
Yeah.
Okay. Anasema and chips. I was Chavis. Okay. I was an addict of Mira, Moguka, and the addiction of Usherati. I was a drum full of evil, hadi my family broke. I lost my happiness, my wife, 2 lovely daughters waliniacha. Na hilo jambo badua linani torture. I've never healed. By then, I used to stay in Malaba border. I was a fool, I was stupid. Yani, yule mjinga na yuko na pesa. Na ungepata natamani kuacha, but najipata nimerudi ndani. My salvation was off on, off, on. I used to fight it so much, even I could have that tobacco stuff inside my mouth. Na niko church, kwanza hata napanda kuserve kwa madhabahu. May God forgive me. I was in praise and worship team and I used to smoke bang also. I began in a very simple way, inspired by truck drivers and trailers who used to deliver us goods. But now I count my 5th year in serious salvation, serving the Lord in praise and worship team, choir, etc. Glory be to the Most High God for saving me. Now I'm in a 5th year marriage, although bado hatujafanikiwa na watoto. Anasema ni wengi nilikuwa nao walikufa. I think wengi wenye walikuwa nao during the time they died. Waliekewa sumu kwa pombe na wengine walikuwa wagonjwa viruses, but with me bado huo uovu wote bado Mungu alinitendea, alinipenda bado na ananipenda bado. Mkono wake ulikuwa juu yangu. Anasema Reverend Alex, kindly I'd love to walk with you. This addiction thing is worldwide and it's a disaster. You've given your number. Asante sana for that, but we'll be giving our numbers as well later. Anita Jeff, he's from Nairobi, so he's given his experience, and we can tell that from his experience, for a very long time, the family in a break, the kids left him, so it's quite a lot. So if you're there, we'd love to tell you that this is hope right here, and he's saying that even with that, God bado alikubali kumrestore. After all those years, God alimrestore, and he's now in his 5th year of marriage and fully serving God, now without using alcohol and without being an addict. We're taking a very short break. We'll be coming right back. This is Afya Clinic on MBCI TV, where we talk about everything health, and of course we transform lives by the grace of God. Tutakuwa tunarudi in a very short while. We'll be coming to continue with this topic, addiction, and we are tackling these with Reverend Alex. Usiende mbali.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Elizabeth kwa Biblia alikuwa mama ya nani?
Sijui mama, lakini najua bwanake.
Bwanake alikuwa anaitwa nani?
Alikuwa king.
Ukidhani alikuwa anaitwa king nani hivi? Ukiangalia tu hivi alikuwa na king nani?
King Jeroboam.
Mungu wakati alipatia Moses parables, alimpea parables ngapi?
10.
254 plus 254 ni ya Kenya, plus 257 ni ya
Arusha. Arusha.
Shalom, shalom, and God bless you. It gives me great joy and pleasure to invite you to this wonderful, wonderful conference that will be praying over the destiny of the nation of Kenya. Apostle John Kimani William, together with the National Prayer Committee, extends this very warm invitation for you to come, that we can speak into the destiny of Kenya and birth a turnaround in this season. By the grace of God, we shall be hosting a very seasoned man of God, Apostle Emmanuel Nuhukure from Nigeria, and in partnership we shall be speaking, praying, decreeing, and declaring the word of the Lord over this nation. God has a purpose and a plan to fulfill that which God has intended for our nation, and we are calling upon all of us as Kenyans. Let's rise, let's pray, let's seek God. Let's unite together as one, because the destiny of Kenya is intertwined with your destiny. And God has called you to take responsibility so that you can birth a turnaround, and that there will be a birthing of a newness, revival, a move of God that will shift this nation to be what God originally intended. I believe it's going to be good and it's going to be a wonderful moment. We shall be here on the 30th from the morning, 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. The same thing with the 1st of May, and on the 2nd of May, we shall be here from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then join up together for an overnight kesha from 9 p.m. at night till dawn. See you there. Let's press in. I believe there is a divine encounter for you individually as you seek God for the purposes of God to be established in the nation of Kenya. God bless you. See you at this marvelous destiny shifting conference. Amen.
Pre-filled cups with wafer and juice.
In remembrance of him, do this as often as you drink it, in remembrance of me. These powerful words from Scripture remind us of the significance of Holy Communion. Communion Elements brings you pre-filled communion cups, prepared with altar juice and a wafer, all in one safe and sealed single-serving cup. Perfect for churches, congregations of any size, home fellowships, small groups, or even personal devotion. Ordering is easy. Simply call or WhatsApp us on 0799 988 371. That is 0799 988 371. You can also find us on social media, Communion Elements, or visit our website at holycommunionelements.com. That is holycommunionelements.com.
Nestled just 11 kilometers from Nakuru town along the Njoro Road, Bridgewater Primary and Junior Schools offers a unique learning experience in a peaceful and conducive environment. Our dedicated staff ensures that every child receives the attention they deserve with a small student-to-teacher ratio that enhances individualized learning. With state-of-the-art science and computer laboratories, your child will have access to modern learning resources that prepare them for a bright future. We provide ample space for recreation and rest with a large playground for physical activities and clean, spacious dormitories with 24-hour resident matrons ensuring your child's safety and well-being. Every learner is provided with enough textbooks in all learning areas, ensuring they all have what they need to succeed academically. Transport is available, making it easy for both day and boarding students to access the school. Your child's safety is our priority, with a secure environment to ensure peace of mind for every parent. Bridgewater Primary and Junior Schools is committed to maintaining a clean environment and providing a reliable water supply sourced directly from our own borehole. At Bridgewater, we offer affordable school fees without compromising the quality of education. Join us today and give your child a brighter future. For more details, contact 0727 070 076 or 0752 730 715. Bridgewater Primary and Junior Schools, where your child's journey to success begins.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
All right, we are back after that very short break, and as you had said, it's a very short break, and now we're back. We are talking about addiction. This is Afya Clinic, and of course we're doing that on MBCI TV, where we transform lives by the grace of God. My name is Rachel Kahugo. Karibu sana. We're so glad to have you here, and I know that you are getting something from today's conversation. All right. Now, we've had the first part of addiction, where we talked about what addiction is, how you get into addiction. If you're there and you've been an addict before, you can also share your story, and I know that that will help someone else, and how you got out of addiction. Okay, our numbers are very open for that. That is 0721 105 105 on WhatsApp, 23814, our SMS code, which is absolutely free of charge. We're live on Facebook on MBCI TV Facebook page. We're live on YouTube on MBCI TV official YouTube page. Thank you so much for following. I see we have people from KG New Beginnings, Miriam Drive. Oh, ungekosa kuwasalimia leo. Ungepatana nao on Sunday. Sijui ungewaambia nini. And I say shout out to REV ALEX and Afya Clinic. We are learning. And it's Priscilla and David, New Beginnings members. Asante sana, mbarikiwe kweli kweli. Now, we had this message that we read before going for that very short break. Jeff from Nairobi, who told us about his experience in addiction and after addiction. And it's so devastating that he lost his family, like his family broke, daughters and wife. God has restored him. What would you say about what he's just said?
You know, I mentioned earlier that in school we were told about hard drugs. You know, they made a category as if they are soft and hard drugs. And I made a comment that from our observation, we have seen that regardless of whatever it is somebody is using, once they get hooked, the devastation is the same. The profile that he just gave us could fit the profile of any heroin junkie out there, any alcohol addict out there. In fact, just minor details would change on the specifics. Like I had 2 children. So once somebody gets hooked and is on that path, and the longer you're on that path of, you know, being hooked to that drug, every moment in that journey, you get a measure of destruction piling up. In fact, over the years, I've developed my own. I think I should label it that when it comes to life-controlling issues, addictions, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, once it hooks you, it will take away from you what is most important to you.
Why? How?
And I think that's proof that these things are demonic. It's not just a random thing that has happened to your body that now you are dependent on it. Once you get hooked to whatever it is that you're playing with at the moment, how it works and what we have seen, and that man and his testimony is proof again. It takes away from you what is most important to you. You can hear the cry. You can hear his cry. It took away from me, he says, my 2 beautiful daughters. And that's the thing with addiction, and why for me it's not just a physiological thing, it's also a spiritual thing. That the mastermind behind it is Satan. And these substances and these things are his way of removing man from God's presence. And once he does that, he becomes their tormentor. Because that's a life of being tormented, if you heard. So with addiction, the devastation is the same, regardless of the substance. You become a gambler, I am telling you, it will take away your job, it will take away your family, it will take away your social status. People will see you and cross the road because you have borrowed money from everybody, you have not repaid. It will make you homeless, it will make you depressed, and in the end, you see, now when we start talking about depression, it means that now your habit has now even transitioned to becoming a mental issue, a mental health issue. So I am happy for my brother that he found his way back. What was my question in my heart was, what did he do? I would have loved to know how he changed from that guy to the man he is. What's the turning point? In fact, in Teen Challenge, we have a ministry outreach we call Turning Point. And it's meant to help churches and people in general who are willing, but most of the time it's hosted in churches. We train them on how to minister and to reach out to alcoholics and drug addicts and people with life-controlling issues in their area. Because yes, Teen Challenge, we take in people, but we have a limitation of bed space. We can't take in everybody who needs help. Some people may not be even ready for a residential program because maybe they still have work or they have nobody to pay for them. But with a program like that, that outreach we have in Teen Challenge called Turning Point, they are able to come on a certain day and they go through the discipleship similar to that which we do in Teen Challenge to help them walk away from these addictions. And I'm telling you, every year we see so many people delivered. Right now in KAG, New Beginnings, Mirema Drive, there is one that happens there with the variety of programs. From Wednesday, from Tuesday, we have young people in high school, not high school, sorry, in university or on their first job, but they have a life controlling issue. But they're still functioning. So we have a program for them from 11 every Tuesday. On Wednesday, we have another program for ladies.
That's interesting.
We have a program for ladies. This is an example of one turning point center now. KAG Mirema Drive, where I'm the pastor, we have that. On Wednesday, we have for ladies. And the ladies in particular, right now we are doing great outreach to, are those who are prostitutes. Because of the way they are caught up in that life, it's very hard to evangelize to them. No church wants them. No church is doing outreach or meaningful outreach to them. So we have a program that for turning point for the ladies, we call it Ladies from the Streets. They meet every Wednesday. And all these ladies, you find they are addicted to multiple things. We have a turning point for extreme addicts on Thursdays.
Okay.
And here now...
Do they come?
They come every day.
Because that would be my question. How do you get to convince them? Kujeni tuongee.
We'll get to that when we talk about how to help people.
Okay.
So on Thursday we have extreme addicts. These are people now who are no longer functioning. They can no longer hold a job. They don't have a house they can live in, or if they do, it's perhaps in a certain slum somewhere. Their family has rejected them. So they're out there in the street or hiding somewhere. They're no longer functional. So we have a program for them every Thursday. And this is now turning point that now disciples such level of addiction.
Okay.
Then on Saturday we have another one for street teenagers. Those who are formerly what we call chokoras, but now they're teenagers.
Okay.
And at this time, they're addicted to multiple number of drugs, and perhaps they're experimenting crime. And for the young girls, prostitution, they're beginning to be prepared to get into it. So we have a program for them. And you see, with the beauty with Turning Point, for example, in our church, it's free.
Okay.
For Teen Challenge, for you to be admitted into the program, there is a fee. But again, we realize in our society, there's so many people who can't afford to get the help. They have nobody to sponsor them. And so, like I'm here, I'm taking this opportunity to speak to churches, to speak to pastors. Reach out to Teen Challenge. We come to your church. We train you on how you can become a turning point center so that you are able to meet the need of your community. In fact, I'm finding it funny for Christians and churches, especially in the urban centers, that they are saying they're doing evangelism, they're saying they're preaching Jesus in the city, and yet they're doing nothing as far as issues to do with drugs, alcohol, prostitution, crime is concerned, because this is a network.
But you know, that's a very unique...
No, we have been called... These are the lost in the city, if you didn't know. The people who are not coming to church, the young people not coming to church, they're using something. So if you do not have a program to reach out to them, they may not yet be prostitutes, but they're fornicating, they're out clubbing, they're on that path that eventually will lead them to serious destruction. So if you do not have a program to reach out to these young people, then
you lose them.
We're missing out on a great field.
So what I'd say on that is that if you're there, you're a pastor, you know of a church, you attend a church, and you know you don't have a kind of ministry like the Turning Point as you've explained, this is where you reach out to Teen Challenge. I love to call them Teens Challenge. Teen Challenge.
Yes.
And Teen Challenge will be able to come to your church and train you on how you'll be able to just reach out to the people who have life controlling issues. Because if you're able to get to these people, then I would love to say that we'll have a very beautiful, amazing country and community when we are able to live with these people and help them to come back to Christ. That would be so beautiful. Now, we have so many questions and time is really running. We'd love for us to, now this is where we we talk about these very seriously and fasten our seatbelts, because this is now what we see. What are the effects? What do we now get to see? What are the fruits of life controlling issues?
Oh, let's actually begin with how do I know I'm addicted?
Okay, yeah.
Because there's somebody watching you and I'm thinking they're saying,
Yeah, I'm not addicted.
I'm not addicted.
What do you mean? Yeah.
You see, so with addiction, you see, one of the obvious signs is that you can't do without that thing.
And it could be internet. I don't know.
You can't do without that thing. Myself. You see, that's a hint. That's a red flag.
If you can't do without your phone for a day.
Yeah. Secondly, do you need more to feel what you felt last time?
Okay.
So the increase in frequency of use. And that fits straightforward for substances. Now when it comes to the gambling, you realize that now you are betting more frequently. Okay? You're taking more risks. You're even risking flight, your bus fare, your rent. You understand? Pornography. You're in the middle of a meeting.
Yeah.
And now, before you just used to watch the porn when you are about to sleep. But now, you're in a meeting, when other people are discussing other things, you're busy scrolling. You are sitting there thinking of a new site you can subscribe to. You used to watch 20 minutes and it would bore you, but now you're staying there for 2 hours, 3 hours. Increased frequency.
Yeah. Okay.
And the most obvious one, you can't stop.
Yeah.
You have tried to say, I will not do this today. I will not do this weekend. But before you finish, I will not.
You're there.
You're there.
Yep.
You see, that tells you now you have a life controlling issue at hand.
Yeah.
It's what you're thinking about when you're sleeping, when you're awake. It's occupying a lot of your thinking.
Yeah.
And now what you begin to see, for example, let's talk to parents, for example, and they want to know if my teenager is using. Behavior change. Somebody who was social, they're now very quiet, secluded. Change in friends. They suddenly are working with a certain crowd that is associated with those things. Okay? There is a lot of withdrawal. Some withdraw to their room and they are in hiding. They don't want to interact with everybody else.
Yeah.
Others get dirty. Somebody used to be clean, and suddenly they are unkept. You start hearing issues at school.
Yeah.
They are caught up in this. They have ran away. Suddenly they want to be in every funky. This guy was not that much of a funky person. Then suddenly,
yuko kila mahali.
Every funky.
Yeah.
And the one that cuts across everybody is the unexplained need for money. That somebody suddenly has this never-ending need for money. All of a sudden, their bus fare is no longer enough.
Yeah.
They are borrowing. You check their phone, they have all these loan apps. They become liars. Once somebody become addicted, once they have a life controlling issue, they become liars. Their currency becomes their tongue.
Okay.
Because most of the time, as the addiction gets serious, they will lose their job, they will lose functionality, or how they maintain their job. And functionality is through lies. They become master manipulators.
Yeah.
They make you feel guilty
for things themselves have done.
Yes. Okay. You love my brother more than me. This boss from day one never liked me. This supervisor is always picking on me. So these people are, they're losing jobs very fast. They're having discipline issues all too frequently, and suddenly it's the teacher.
Yeah.
My teacher doesn't like me. It is this school. In fact, when somebody is in high school and they start using drugs, and when they come to our center and we interview them, we will find out from many that they have been into 3 or 4 high schools, between Form 1 and Form 4. Because the school is always the problem.
Yeah.
This one is too cold. That one, the principal didn't like me. That one, they were bullying me. They have issues with...
It's a them problem.
Yes. It's never a me problem.
Okay. I hear you.
So these are some of the, the behavioral things you begin to see.
Yeah.
But now when the addiction gets serious, you see people in serious debt. You see people losing life. They're getting involved in accidents.
Yeah.
Like we have a guy at the center. The other day we were in a meeting and he testified that before he came to the center he crashed a car, but it was his 10th car to write off.
Yeah. Imagine crashing 10 cars. Hata wekuwa too serious.
And they say it like it's a thing. When you're in that life, you look cool. You look like... in fact,
he said that and I was just thinking about how would you have 10 accidents?
In one lifetime.
Writing off 10 cars in one lifetime as one man. Hata we God amekurumia sana.
So in real life, so when somebody becomes addicted and they're a parent, paying bills become an issue.
Yeah.
Showing up for meetings for the kids, for parents, they're always disappointing. They become the dad who you're waiting for to show up. They say atawapeleka mahali ndakuja saflani, and they don't show. They come at night with some story or with no story at all. They have so many promises that they make and they never fulfill. And in the end, they have a series of hurts. They hurt people around them. So in the end, their relationships break.
Yeah.
If it's a marriage, it breaks. If it's children, they have an estranged relationship with the kids. Some become very violent. They fight anyone and everyone. Are very abusive, angry. Others now even become suicidal.
Yeah.
When now things go haywire, they lose everything. Their world comes crumbling down. They become, suicidal. They want to die, and it becomes a very ugly picture.
Yeah.
They sell things. If it's a young teenager, they steal things in the house. I make fun and I say, if you have to count your money several times in your house, every time that you wasn't this 800? There's a thief in that house? You're living with a thief. And more than likely that thief has a life controlling issue.
Yeah. But Pasi, how would you help this person? And we are, this is where we are. You may realize we've gotten there and it's very important. We'll be answering your questions. Hopefully we'll get enough time, but we'll not be able to answer all the questions. We'll give a number and I know that you will get help. Actually, Rev, there's someone who said, praise God, kindly send me Reverend's number. Yeah, for questions. Yeah, you have questions, but you said you just send the number. Ni nyingi sana. It's fine. We'll give numbers. And I say, hello, good morning. I've been addicted in watching pornographic movies, but when I received Christ, I don't want to hear about it anymore. I thank the Lord for breaking addiction. That reminds me, Jeff, please tell us about your turning point. Would get to, he sent. We'll be reading about that as well. But how would you, because now we've identified someone who is in addiction, has a life controlling issue, or they're getting there. You tell that they wakotuna to behaviors that would tell you this person is either an addict or they're going there. They're using something.
Yes.
How would you help this person, assuming they're your friend, your brother, your uncle, someone you're close to? How would you help this person?
The first thing to do is to speak up. You have to raise the issue with the person. It doesn't help not to address the issue. It doesn't help not to skirt around the issue. It begins with speaking up, and you face the person squarely and point out that you have a problem because of this and this and this.
But they will build walls, and that will be it.
But there's no shortcut around it. You must speak up.
Okay.
You must point out that this habit of yours has gotten out of control. You have to raise the issue with the person.
Yeah.
And now the response will tell you whether your next step now. The response determines the next step.
Yeah.
So if a person admits and says, oh, yes, definitely, I know, I've tried, that is a very good scenario.
Yeah.
Because that is a person now who is admitting and is ready now to receive help. But most of the time, people will not admit. Most addicts are in denial.
Yeah. So what do you do there?
The next step is obvious. You now begin steps to help the person realize they have a problem. And you see, many people who are addicts and they're in denial, they still expect you to intervene when they're in problems. So one of the obvious next steps for a person in denial is to begin now the process of letting them experience the consequences of their actions. You withdraw from being their savior.
Okay.
You do not have a problem.
Okay.
Then you do not need my
help.
My help.
Okay. But they'll get help somewhere else.
Oh, it comes to an end. Because if you continue helping them, thinking that you are trying to salvage the situation, you don't want your son to die stealing, so you give him the 200 for him to be drinking. We call you an enabler. Because you are facilitating them into addiction. You are delaying their cry for help. No addict has ever changed without them crying for help. In fact, the first step to change is I need help. So how do you make them say I need help? You let them experience the consequences of their actions. You show them tough love. You stop being their savior. The prodigal son, he goes to the dad, says, I need my property. Give me my inheritance. You want to tell me the dad that didn't know that this is a problem child? Who doesn't know their son? So he knew, I'm going to give him the money and he's going to squander it. The son goes and in no time spends everything. It's until he is really desperate that he considers changing. So if you do not allow the person to experience the consequences of their actions, you keep saving them. You are interfering with God trying to save your brother, your husband, your son. In fact, you're standing in the way of God. You thought that person was the problem, but you have also become a problem. And I know that's tough for somebody to hear.
It is.
So if somebody gets expelled, you do not become the guy who now goes to lie in another school and paint a picture of the way how good he is. You see, you are enabling. Somebody gets arrested for stealing. Allow them to go to prison, please. Some of them, when they're there, that's the time they will listen. In fact, what we have seen, when it comes to the issues of dealing with addicts, that the people who die in addiction are most of the time the people the family was trying to protect. But when a family says, you have decided that route, you go, you live your life. They don't die, they change. But the one the family tries to protect, he dies. Sometimes he dies in a very embarrassing way. They commit suicide in their houses. And they are mobbed right outside their gate. It becomes a very painful bit. So you need to allow the person to feel the consequences of their actions. You need something else to help them is that you need to stop blaming yourself. when you have somebody in your life who has a life controlling issue, they have a way of making you feel like you are the cause of their problems.
You're the problem.
If only you would help them, if only you are there more for them, if only you listen, they make you feel guilty. And when now you are responding to their problem and to their addiction out of guilt, you never offer help, you never do the right thing, you continue to enable them.
Okay.
You understand? Okay. In addiction, they say that people change when they hit rock bottom. So in Teen Challenge, we said it the other way around. We say you raised the bottom.
Okay.
So you don't wait for them to naturally get to rock bottom. You facilitate the rock bottom.
So that they'll change faster?
You understand?
Okay.
So somebody does not want to work and wants to spend the whole day drinking and then come sleep in your house, kick them out.
Yeah.
Fukuza huyo mtu. Yeye ni ujinga kumweka hapo. Atakutesa.
And that's very, but how do you just balance making sure, because you love this person, they're your brother.
And you have shown them love, my friend.
So how do you balance that?
You kick them out. That's the balance.
Okay.
My friend, it's either you work to eat. Even the Bible says that. This man spent his whole day drinking. And you're the good, loving wife. You house him, you feed him, you clothe him because you do not want people in the village to talk bad about your husband.
You enable it.
He will die. He will be hit by a car on the road there. He will drown kwa mutaro, courtesy of you.
That's very hard. That's very hard truth there. But now,
raise the bottom.
Yeah.
Take measures to make them feel pain. Maybe this will help somebody. The only language an addict understands and hears and respects is pain. Nyinyi kukaa mumuongeleshe.
They never get it.
They never.
Oh, they never.
They
get
never
it.
hear.
Yeah.
Oh, I always hear mothers like that. If somebody would talk to him, if even they bring them to me, talk to this person. Talk. Of course, I will talk to the person, but I do know what the Waswahili said. Sikio la kufa halisiki dawa. The only language a person with a life controlling issue understands is pain. Look at even an example of Jeff. What caught his attention, and I'm sure when he gives us the story,
he's given us the story,
is when he loses everything. He realizes he's alone, he's miserable. That's the time the wake-up call comes. And suddenly there is willpower to begin the process of change.
Yeah. He's actually said that.
Yeah?
He said, yeah, he's saying, Rev, my turning point was not easy. It reached a time after my family broke, my job also broke, iliisha. Now Jeff is there, jobless, familyless, drug addict, no money. Out of a man of family, having his job, ended up vulnerable in life. It reached a time when I was depressed and I was at a point of doing away with my life there in Malaba. It was then that I went home. Kule nikaanza kuambiwa okumwibia mama mzazi mahindi, only to sell ndio nipate a glass of changa. Anasema just by coincidence God brought a lady in my life, and just via WhatsApp we started chatting, and there she organized for me my bus ticket to Nairobi. Hakujua what I'm going to do through sikumwambia because I feared nikimwambia atanitoka. After getting to the city, she organized a job for me na nikaanza kazi. Definitely akanidirect. Okay, nasema God akamdirect to Redeemed Gospel Church. Pale ndo akaanza kusikia roho imeenda wapi? Roho ikipigana na mwili. So it's there.
But you see, even without finishing that story, you can tell
he started from the point of he had nothing else.
Pain.
Yeah.
Pain. One of the worst things that families do and loved ones do is to cover for the person with the life controlling issue.
Yeah.
We cover for them. We maintain a decent appearance for them. We don't want people to say bad things about our family.
Yeah.
So we will pay for them their rent, we will buy for them clothes, we will transfer them from college to college. We want to keep up appearances. If you really want to address this issue once and for all, you need to arrive at a place whereby you realize that the only language that would catch the attention of this guy is pain. And you let them experience the consequences of their actions.
Okay.
When they're hungry, they listen.
Yeah, when they're hungry, they listen.
When they're homeless, sleeping outside, oh my, it beats 1,000 lectures. I'm telling you, the mothers I've spoken to, everything in the house has been sold. Mateso almost being beaten up by this son and daughter. And wanamvumilia tu, unajua mimi ni mamake. And then the ladies find themselves in that trap that they think God appointed them. And sorry, it may sound bad, but some ladies believe that God appointed them to carry people all their life. No, this person is over 18. He's an adult.
As a result. Okay.
Even in nature, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I hear you. Now, Tim is really running. Have so many questions. Oh my goodness, I wish we had more time to be able to read the questions and understand the questions and answer the questions, but we might not be able to do all that. For now, what I want for us to do, because we also have some of the myths that surround addiction, but we'll be getting that immediately after Healthy Living. Now, Healthy Living is a segment that has been brought to us by Sylvia Wandra. She's made this just to help us understand what you'd do to break free from addiction, or what you do as you're there, you know what you're addicted to, because you know. If you don't, now you know after this discussion, and you know, no, this just helps us understand what we're supposed to do in that state. And I know that Rev will be explaining more about the segment, but for now, let's get that, and then we'll be getting more into the discussion. We'll give the numbers, I promise. Relax. We will give the numbers. All right. For now, please, let's just get the Healthy Living.
Hello and welcome to Healthy Living. My name is Sylvia Wandra. Today on Healthy Living, we are going to focus on how to overcome addictions. Overcoming addiction, whether it's substances, behaviors, or habits, requires commitment, support, and a structured plan. Here is a clear guide. Number 1, acknowledge the problem. The first step is honest self-awareness. Admit that you have an addiction and recognize its impact on your life and health. Accept that you need help. It's a sign of strength, not weakness. Number 2, seek professional help. Doctors, therapists, or addiction counselors can guide your recovery journey. They may recommend therapy, medications, or treatment programs. If needed, join rehab programs, that is inpatient or outpatient, for structured support. Number 3, build a strong support system. Surround yourself with family, friends, or support groups who encourage recovery. Attend meetings like AA, that is Alcoholics Anonymous, NA, that is Narcotics Anonymous, or other peer support groups. Share your struggles and victories with people you trust. Number 4, develop healthy coping strategies. Replace addictive behaviors with positive activities like exercise, art, music or hobbies, meditation or prayer. Manage stress through healthy outlets instead of turning to addictive substances or habits. Number 5, set clear, achievable goals. Create small, realistic goals, e.g., one day at a time. Celebrate small victories to build momentum. Focus on consistency rather than perfection. Number 6, avoid triggers. Identify and avoid places, people, or situations that tempt you to relapse. If necessary, make changes in your environment or daily routine to minimize exposure to triggers. Number 7, practice self-care. Eat a balanced diet, get enough sleep, and exercise regularly. Care for your mental health. Practice relaxation techniques like deep breathing, mindfulness, or yoga.
All right, we are back, and that is it about the amazing segment by Sylvia Wandra. Now, we do have some myths, but before we get that, what is one of the most common myths you've heard that surrounds addiction?
That it's a curse.
Is it?
Especially among Christians, they believe it's some generational curse that is running in their family.
But is it? You know that your Guka used to drink so much, that's why you drink.
What we have seen in the 60 years Teen Challenge has been ministering to alcoholics and drug addicts.
Yeah.
We have seen that at the center of addiction is choices, the choices you make.
Okay.
So rather than blaming people who are long dead and gone, I think it would be better for you to focus on your choices.
Okay.
My Guka never smoked on my behalf.
You did?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now let's get some of the. All right. Let's get some of the mythbusters. And the first one is that addiction is a choice. Is that a myth?
In Teen Challenge, no. Once, it's a tricky question the way they have put it there.
Yeah.
Your usage of a substance is your choice. And continued usage is your choice. The dependency, which now is the addiction, comes as a result of now your body being dependent.
Yeah.
So that last bit is not entirely a choice,
Yeah.
but the beginning, which is the genesis, is your choice.
Okay. So you need to decide if you're there, and I hope you're. Mimi namaliza na nitumie hizi links. Itabidi umejam after mshaskiza. But because you have to change, surely. Okay. The second mythbuster is that if someone relapses, they failed. We didn't talk about the relapsing part. You've tried, you've stayed clean for like 2-3 months, and then you relapse. What happens?
I know people don't like this, but choice.
Again.
Choice. You see, that's why in Teen Challenge, we disciple people. We use the word of God to help them learn how to make good choices concerning everyday life situations. And that's what the Bible calls wisdom. So it's wisdom unto salvation.
Okay.
So yes, there is a question of choice.
Okay.
So the failure is in feeling that you're back to zero.
So you have to start.
And
fresh.
you see, that's the other thing with Teen Challenge. What we have learned is that there's no shortcut, and we can't go scat around the issue of somebody accepting responsibility for their actions.
Yeah.
It is you who went back there. You. The bad didn't come to you.
Yeah. See who went.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other models try and excuse people, but no wonder they do not have success rates.
Okay.
No wonder they have very high relapse rates.
Yeah.
So
it's your choice. It's a failure. So you have to take
you admit it.
responsibility and move. It's a very hard statement, but you have to accept it so that you can heal. The third one is that you have to hit rock bottom to get help. Do you have to?
I would say that's a myth. You do not have to.
Yeah.
It's only a fool who learns the hard way.
Yeah.
You can choose and see somebody else is hit rock bottom and say, me, I'm not going
Never
there.
been there. Yeah.
So choice. All the way you have a choice to make.
Okay. So that's a myth. That's a myth. You don't have to. And the last one is that faith and prayer alone can cure addiction.
It's a myth. Faith and prayer do play a role in your recovery journey.
Yeah.
But those two alone can't rescue you. For example, in Teen Challenge, our program runs for 1 whole year. Somebody stays in our center for 1 year. Most programs are 3 months old.
Why 1 year?
But
Because I'm also thinking, gosh, for a whole year.
For Teen Challenge, our model runs for 1 year because we are very careful on who we take in. We take in people who, in the interview, in the course of talking to them, they will tell us they do not see themselves alive if they don't get help. So we take in people who are at a real extreme.
Okay.
And people who are at a real extreme cannot remember the last time they were productive. And we know for them to get there, many years have been spent on that addiction.
Yeah.
So how do you unwind 20, 15, 10 years of a life You understand?
Yeah, makes
in,
sense.
In 3 months.
Makes
So
sense.
even 1 year
Makes sense.
is just but the beginning.
Okay.
Because again, we said our model is a discipleship program. We teach you how to live your life again, now from a biblical perspective. So faith and prayer alone can't help.
Yeah.
Discipline.
Okay. Now, I did hear a testimony of one of the people who are still in Teen Challenge. You
Yes.
mentioned one of the guys, and I'll just, mention it here because it's also very important for you to hear this. And that really encouraged me. But thank you so much for coming with him to that conference that you should join next time. We'll tell you about it. But this is a guy who is very well learned. He's a gynecologist, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a gyna. And we've had gynas here on this show. So you know they can help. They've helped you before, But this is a guy who was addicted for how long?
Oh, he said 36 something years.
More than 30 years.
Yes, 34 years he said.
34 years. He's had 10 accidents. I thought about that. And then I was almost asking him later, are you okay? Do you need help? Like, mentally, are you okay? Because how would you, and I thank God for this. I gave, my aunt told me, shida yenu ni kuambiana kila kitu kwa TV. But the other time on Friday, we almost got into an accident. And I thank God that you're alive today. But after that, I then thought about this guy who got into an actual accident, but now 10 times. All because he was an addict of alcohol. Not that he didn't have the money, he's a guy now, he was working. He's still working, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So you could be there and you're saying, no, I'm in a job, mimi niko kwa at the extreme end and no one cares about you. Is that hata ukiwa hapo mahali yuko, you can still get help. And now because of that, I know we've talked about so much, and as I said before, is that we might not be able to get all the questions answered, but ningetaka tumalizie na this one question, and then you'll be giving us your parting shot, and also just speak to that one person who's there and they're an addict of whatever they are addicted to. They are an addict. Before that, tukantazan, anauliza, can addiction cause you harm, health-wise or psychological harm?
Oh, definitely. These are substances that you are bringing into your body that are, for example, when it's substance use, alcohol causes liver cirrhosis. There are those scary charts that Nakada shares. You see, even the brain shrinks. All of these drugs affect your emotions, and you become emotionally dependent on them. And some of them, like one of the serious cheap drugs right now is Mugoka. Mugoka usage is leading so many young people into psychosis, meaning they are losing their mind. It's not just an addiction they're having, it's developing into a mental illness. They cannot distinguish between what is real and what's not. Mugoka, I don't know why the government allows it to be sold. Should have been banned a long time ago. The damage on the young people is in untold proportions. The number of young people who are losing their mind, who are losing their mental health because of Mugoka.
It's high.
So yeah, it does affect your mental health and your body health. And of course, from Christian perspective, and your spiritual health. So many people now have left the Lord because of the addiction.
Maybe one day we'll talk about all that again. Anasema, and maybe let's first talk about this. For someone who's out there and, they're addicted, but they have family members who are heavily addicted, what would be your word to them?
Now in terms of helping the person.
Yeah, giving hope. Is there hope at the end?
There is hope. Every year in Teen Challenge we graduate many people who have finished the program. In Turning Point, for example, again, our outreach. There's so many people who used to be addicts for 10, 15, 20 years. And now today they are sober for 5 years. So myself, I was addicted to alcohol as a young man and to that party life. And it's, 22 years since the last time alcohol I tasted it. So there is hope. There is hope. It is possible for your loved one to get delivered. They do not have to die in their addiction. But now, what you do next is what matters. So you stop covering for them, admit there is a problem, and seek the help. If the person is unwilling, you need to make them willing. And how to make them willing, I already said that before. You raise the bottom. You allow them to experience the consequences of their actions. You allow them to feel the pain. There's no better teacher and no better lecturer and counselor like pain. And once they cry out for help, that's where I think we should pick up, is where now institutions like Teen Challenge come into play. You can reach us out. I'm sure they will share the contacts for Teen Challenge. If you Google Teen Challenge of Kenya, you will get our contacts, and you can bring your person to our center and we interview them and see if they are a candidate to become a student in Teen Challenge. Okay? But out there are churches, there are pastors who will gladly walk with somebody who is willing to get help. You know, sometimes we talk bad about churches being everywhere, and we never consider an advantage of churches being everywhere. It means they are within reach, and there is somebody there, okay, who is willing to help. They might not know exactly what needs to be done, but they are willing, and that's a good starting point. They can connect you to a counselor, they can connect you to a center, to a program where you get the help. But somebody has to speak up, and somebody has to take that step of seeking the help. You acting as if the situation is not there is only making the situation worse.
Okay. Perfect. Azima, good morning. What are the terms of helping the addicted person? Do you offer free services? Kindly explain.
Teen Challenge, like most centers, will incur costs of operations. Now, Teen Challenge is a Christian NGO. It's an NGO, a charity organization, and we operate through donations, and not entirely through donations. We have two streams of income through payments that students make and donations that people give towards the center. So we charge a fee for a student, but that's only half the cost of taking in that person. So the people bringing in the student, the sponsor we call them, pays a certain amount. And that amount they pay for is just half the cost of keeping this person in a center for that period, for that month. So the center has to raise money. So we do charge. And but I did mention of the program, like the outreach program, like Turning Point, that we're trying to sell the idea to churches. If they would agree, we teach them, to institutions, to people, so that if we start those Turning Point ministries, Turning Point ministries in their churches, in wherever they are in their community, that is free to attend. Of course, there is a cost to running the program, but it's not paid by the person seeking the help. It will be like a community thing.
Perfect. Now, for the people who've had you and maybe their churches, they'd want to reach out to be trained for the Turning Point program, or the people who are addicted and they'd want to have a word with you, ask questions, or people who know people that are addicted. We have the Teen Challenge numbers that will be on your screens. But then for the people who would want to reach you, please give us your contacts as well. I know that they'll be on the screens as we continue as well.
For those people who may be now interested in now speaking to me, my number is 0722 760 951. It's on the screen.
Okay. So that's the number. Please make sure, call, seek help, because it's there.
The center numbers are there. Have more information as far as helping somebody is concerned. So there are also good contacts. We have center in Nakuru and the centers in Nairobi and Kiambu. So
they'll get help.
People will get help.
Sawa sawa. Thank you so much for being with us on this program. This was a power-packed, heavy program, but I know that we've all learned something from this. Thank you so much for being here. We say that we do value your time greatly, and I know that you've learned something. We know, we believe, and we hope that you've learned something from this. Asante sana for being here. God bless you. God be with you. Have an amazing rest of the day. Please remember the lunch hours from 12:30 to 2:30. No, Tabarikiwa. Kasarani, we're having a meeting in Kasarani. Please do not miss it. Make sure you follow on our social media pages, on MBCI TV, and you will be blessed. Do not miss out. We say that anytime God releases a word for us, it's for us to be open to receive it. Because He released, not a couple and you won't receive socially, then what happens? So make sure you follow. If you are in Kasarani, make sure when they pale, you're in Nairobi, make sure when they pale so that you will be blessed. All right, so until then, I'll see you next week. Yeah, next week on this show. I'll see you next week on Wednesday. But until then, God bless you. God be with you. Have an amazing rest of the day. Tunakupenda. Bye-bye.